For over a century, we've been told that germs and viruses are the enemy, that sickness is something you catch, and the only way to protect yourself is through vaccines, pharmaceuticals, and other interventions. But what if this narrative is not just wrong, but deliberately deceptive? What if the real key to health has been hidden in plain sight, while an entire industry profits from keeping us sick? Welcome to the world of terrain theory and the shocking history of the medical industrial complex. Germ theory, popularized by Louis Pasteur, tells us that microorganisms like bacteria and viruses invade our bodies and cause disease. It's the foundation of modern medicine, dictating how we approach health, prevention, and treatment. But there's another lesser-known perspective: terrain theory, championed by Pasteur's contemporary Antoine Béchamp. Béchamp's terrain theory posits that disease doesn't come from external invaders, but from within. When the body's internal environment, its terrain, becomes imbalanced through poor diet, stress, toxins, or lack of movement, it creates conditions for illness. Germs, rather than being the cause, are opportunistic. They thrive in unhealthy environments, but don't cause the imbalance themselves. Pasteur, it's said, even admitted on his deathbed that Béchamp was right. The microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. But by then, the damage was done. Germ theory had already been weaponized by powerful interests. One of the greatest misconceptions perpetuated by germ theory is the existence of viruses as contagious agents of disease. Terrain theorists argue that what we call viruses are not living organisms or external threats, but simply cellular debris, fragments of dead or damaged cells, expelled during detoxification processes. Here's why. Viruses aren't alive. Unlike bacteria, viruses don't eat, breathe, or reproduce. They're essentially inert particles. You don't catch a virus. Symptoms like fever, mucus, or fatigue are the body's natural responses to internal toxicity. A cold isn't an attack, but a cleansing process triggered by environmental factors, stress, or diet. Lab evidence is dubious. The isolation of viruses often involves convoluted procedures that could easily misidentify cellular debris or other particles, like exosomes, as viruses. The so-called isolation of viruses often involves adding toxic substances, such as antibiotics and chemicals, to cell cultures in laboratories. These toxins stress the cells, causing them to break down and release particles, often identified as viruses. Critics argue that this method doesn't prove the existence of pathogenic viruses, but instead demonstrates how cells react to toxic environments. This process has been used to claim the discovery of many viruses, fueling the narrative of external invaders. The truth about isolation. Viruses have never been properly isolated in a manner that proves their independent existence. The processes used, such as blending tissues with toxic chemicals and observing cellular breakdown, fail to demonstrate that these particles cause disease. What is often labelled as isolation is, in fact, a misrepresentation of laboratory artifacts, chickenpox and separation anxiety. Take the example of chickenpox. Conventional medicine attributes it to a highly contagious virus. However, terrain theorists propose an alternative explanation. Chickenpox could be a natural detoxification reaction triggered by stress, such as children experiencing separation anxiety from their parents. Emotional stress weakens the terrain, leading to a physical response in the form of rashes and fever. This aligns with the idea that the body adapts and detoxifies under emotional and environmental pressures. Some studies suggest that outbreaks of chickenpox often coincide with significant emotional events, such as a child starting school or experiencing separation from caregivers. These emotional stressors could trigger a natural detoxification process, manifesting as the symptoms we label as chickenpox. Instead of blaming an invisible virus, we should consider how emotional and physical environments impact children's health. Further evidence challenging the existence of viruses includes electron microscopy issues. Images of viruses often show uniform particles, but these could just as easily be exosomes or other cellular debris. PCR misuse. The polymerase chain reaction (PCR) test, widely used to detect viruses, cannot distinguish between live pathogens and non-infectious genetic material. Flawed infection models. Studies often fail to show direct transmission of viruses between hosts without artificial laboratory interventions. So why is the idea of viruses pushed so aggressively? Follow the money. To understand why germ theory became dominant, we need to look at the early 20th century and the rise of Rockefeller medicine. The Rockefeller family, one of the wealthiest dynasties in history, had significant investments in oil and petrochemicals. Recognizing the potential to monopolize healthcare, they spearheaded a campaign to reshape medicine, standardized medical education. Through the Flexner Report of 1910, funded by Rockefeller and Carnegie interests, medical schools were forced to adopt a curriculum focused on pharmaceuticals and surgery, sidelining holistic and natural approaches, demonizing alternatives. Homeopathy, herbal medicine, and other traditional practices were labeled as quackery, while synthetic drugs, many derived from petrochemicals, were promoted as the only legitimate treatments. Profit over people. The result was a medical industry designed not to heal, but to create lifelong customers dependent on drugs and interventions. This system, built on germ theory and the myth of external threats like viruses, has since grown into a trillion-dollar industry. The modern healthcare system isn't about health, it's about managing disease. Here's how it works. Fear-based medicine. The idea that germs and viruses are everywhere keeps people in a constant state of fear, making them more likely to accept vaccines, antibiotics, and other interventions without question. Suppressing symptoms. Pharmaceuticals often mask symptoms rather than address root causes. This creates dependency while allowing the underlying imbalance to persist. Ignoring terrain health. The focus on fighting germs distracts from what really matters. Nurturing the body's terrain through proper nutrition, hydration, detoxification, and emotional well-being. Profiting from chronic illness. Conditions like diabetes, heart disease, and autoimmune disorders are often preventable or reversible through lifestyle changes. But there's no profit in prevention, only in treatments that manage symptoms indefinitely. Understanding terrain theory empowers us to take control of our health. Instead of fearing invisible threats, we can focus on creating an internal environment where disease cannot thrive. Here are some key steps. Detoxify your body. Support natural cleansing processes through hydration, fasting, and lymphatic movement. Nourish your terrain, eat whole. Organic foods rich in nutrients to support cellular health. Address emotional health. Chronic stress and negative emotions disrupt the body's balance. Practices like meditation, mindfulness, and gratitude can have profound effects. Question the narrative. Don't accept medical advice at face value. Research, ask questions, and explore alternative perspectives. The medical industry's reliance on germ theory is not just a scientific mistake, but a deliberate tool of control. By perpetuating fear and dependency, it has created a society disconnected from true health. But terrain theory offers a path to liberation, a way to understand our bodies as self-healing and resilient when properly cared for. The next time someone tells you to boost your immune system or protect yourself from a virus, remember this: the real solution lies within. Take care of your terrain and the rest will follow. What do you think? Could this shift in perspective change the way we approach health and wellness? Let's discuss below.